for Connor Rosie this Friday night. What about the Giants?
So the Giants really, at the moment, with where their profile's at, have two things going for them. That being the number one pressure team in the comp and being a top three contested footy team in general play. And we threw it on the agenda last week. How far can that alone take you? If you think back to Collingwood 2 years ago, where they just fell 1 point short from a complete profile perspective, it wasn't a great profile, but they had a couple of things going for them. One being pressure and one being their defensive 50 stuff. Then you watch what GWS did on the weekend to Sydney, and their pressure from start to finish was immense, and that's what you're going to get. And then their contested footy work in general play stacked up again, and was the reason why they were able to shut the Swans down behind the footy so well with Taylor and Buckley in particular. I reckon if you're GW, and I get the dilemma that you've got at three-quarter time when you're 21 points in front. Do you change your own method, or do you keep going with that method? And this new speed of ball movement stuff that we're working on and that we'll have ready to rock and roll for 2025 showed on the weekend that GWS in the last quarter, no one moved the ball slower than what GWS did in the last quarter on the weekend against the Swans, compared to what they did in the first three quarters where they moved it at speed. So that, and then having a
tsunami turned into a bay wave.
Yeah, and I just, you had Sydney on toast with what you were doing with your handball game, your meters gain game, and then your quick play game. And then I reckon this midfield group wouldn't have enjoyed the review of the last quarter, in particular with their work at stoppage. So forget GWS's pressure. GWS's pressure in the last quarter was unbelievable at close to 230 AFL, which is 180. Yeah. But GWS were able to win the ball at stoppage more than the Swans, so they had their hands on the footy more than them, but they simply could not handle the Swans' pressure that they were throwing at them at stoppage. So to have your hands on the footy two more times than what the Swans did at first possession, but then to lose clearance by 8 is an absolute killer. And the Swans scoring 7 times as a result of that. So your inability to be able to cash in, and then more importantly, your inability to then cough it up to the Swans. So you're looking at what, Tom Green was unbelievable for three quarters, but then his inability to be able to be clean at stoppage and then get away. Peatling a little bit the same. Callahan a little bit the same.
Callahan had 2 in the last quarter.
So I reckon that would be a hard review. If you're the Giants, did so much right, but there's just a little bit there in that last quarter from a method perspective, and then from a real midfield perspective.
Horny, I know we've got a lot to get through, but you will be pleased that you've just bobbed up on the SEN available episodes on the podcast, and the headline is, Kane, I will vomit.
What'd you notice with the Lions, Horny?
Just want to give their defence a bit of